You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Feel like who art ed?
We'll try to slice it.
Who art ed? Mr. Wood art ed me.
Good. Either way, it's ambiguous. It works on so many levels.
I know.
That's off to a great start.
Welcome to Who Arted, weekly art history for all ages. I'm your host, Kyle Wood, and today we're going to be looking at one of the co-founders of Cubism, Georges Braque. Now, before we get into the episode, I thought I should tell everybody for this month, I'm trying something a little bit different. I'm making a series of episodes I call the TLDR episodes. Since it's back to school season and a lot of art teachers and students use this as an educational resource, I thought it would be nice to make some short form episodes that give a quick, concise overview of artists. And if you all like these episodes, I'll try to make more of them in the future. But for right now, I'm just trying it out for a month and we'll see how it goes. So in each of my TLDR episodes, I'm going to have a very condensed biography, just 5 sort of interesting facts to know about them, and then a quick discussion of one of their works of art. Now for the actual content. Georges Braque was born in France on May 13th, 1882. His father and grandfather were both house painters and decorators, and this family trade gave Braque his first taste of artistic training. He learned specialized techniques like creating faux woodgrain and marble finishes, which would later appear in his artwork. In the early years, he was drawn to the bright, expressive colors of the Fauvists, painting landscapes with vibrant, non-naturalistic palettes. But his artistic direction would change when he saw a retrospective of Paul Cézanne's work, and he met a young Spanish artist who had just painted the shocking Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. I'm talking, of course, about Pablo Picasso. Starting in 1908, Braque and Picasso began an intense artistic collaboration that's one of the most famous in art history. They worked so closely that they often couldn't tell their own paintings apart. They deconstructed traditional perspective and form, inventing the groundbreaking movement known as Cubism. Of course, as the old saying goes, nothing gold can stay, and this period was interrupted by World War I, where Braque served and suffered a severe head injury. After the war, his style evolved. While Picasso's art continued to change dramatically, Braque dedicated the rest of his long career to a more personal and meditative exploration of Cubism, focusing primarily on beautifully textured still lifes and interiors until he passed away in Paris in 1963. Now for your Fast 5, just 5 interesting facts about Braque. Number 1, Braque invented the paper colle technique, a forerunner to collage. You've probably made a collage in school, cutting and pasting different materials onto a surface. Well, you can thank or curse Georges Braque for pioneering the idea in the world of fine art. In 1912, he was in the south of France, and Braque saw a roll of oilcloth printed with a faux woodgrain pattern in a shop window. This reminded him of the decorating techniques he had learned from his father. He bought the oilcloth and pasted pieces of it directly onto a charcoal drawing, creating the first paper colle, which translated to pasted paper. This was a radical act. By incorporating common, machine-produced material into his artwork, Braque challenged the traditional definition of what art could be made of. It flattened the space in the drawing and played with ideas of reality versus illusion. Was it a drawing of wood, or was it the idea of wood? This technique, which Picasso quickly adopted, opened the door for artists to incorporate real-world objects and materials into their work, directly leading to the development of collage and assemblage, or assemblage if you're fancy. Number 2. The severe head wound in World War I temporarily blinded him and changed his life. When World War I broke out in 1914, Braque enlisted in the French army. His intense artistic partnership with Picasso came to an abrupt end. In 1915, while serving as an infantry officer, he was hit in the head by shrapnel and suffered a serious brain injury that left him temporarily blind and required a long and difficult recovery. He had to undergo a tamponation, a surgical procedure where a hole was drilled into his skull. After he recovered his sight and was released from the service in 1916, Braque was a changed man. He returned to Paris where the art world had moved on. The experience of the war and his injury made him more introspective. His art became more personal and more focused on order, structure, and the quiet beauty of everyday objects. He never resumed the same kind of revolutionary collaboration with Picasso, instead carving out his own distinct and more contemplative artistic path. Number 3. Braque was also a skilled sculptor, printmaker, and designer. While he's most famous for his paintings, Braque's creativity wasn't limited to canvas. In the years following his recovery from the war, he began to explore sculpture. He translated his cubist ideas of form and space into 3 dimensions, often creating works out of plaster that had a textured, almost ancient quality to them. Many of his sculptures looked like flattened cubist interpretations of classic Greek heads and figures. Later in life, he became a celebrated printmaker, creating masterful lithographs and etchings. He also took on major public commissions. He designed stained glass windows for a church, and most famously, he was commissioned in his 70s to paint 3 large panels for the ceiling of the Etruscan room in the Louvre Museum in Paris, a modern master's mark on one of the world's most historic museums. Number 4, an art critic's insult actually gave Cubism its name. The name of the revolutionary art movement Braque co-founded was actually born from a negative review. In 1908, Braque submitted a series of landscapes he had painted to the Salon des Atomes, a major art exhibition in Paris. These paintings were heavily influenced by Cézanne and featured simplified geometric forms and muted color palette. The jury, which included the artist Henri Matisse, rejected them. According to the story, Matisse commented that the paintings looked like they were made of little cubes. The art critic, Louis Vaucelet, overheard this remark and in his review of a later exhibition of Braque's work, wrote that Braque, quote, reduces everything to geometric schemas to cubes, end quote. The name stuck. What started as a dismissive insult quickly became the official title of one of the most important art movements of the 20th century. And number 5, Braque and Picasso's collaboration was so close they called themselves Orville and Wilbur Wright. The period between 1908 and 1914 is unique in art history. Braque and Picasso were in constant contact, visiting each other's studios daily to see what the other had made. They were on a shared mission to take apart traditional painting and build something new, much like aviation pioneers inventing a new way to fly. They intentionally suppressed their individual artistic personalities, creating works that were often indistinguishable. They were breaking down objects into fragmented geometric planes and showing them from multiple viewpoints at once, abandoning the single-point perspective that had dominated art since the Renaissance. They didn't sign the front of their paintings during this time to enhance the sense of a joint, anonymous venture. This period, known as Analytic Cubism, was a pure intellectual exploration of form and space, and it would not have been possible without the intense, symbiotic partnership of these 2 artistic giants. Now, after a short break, I want to take a look at one of Braque's greatest masterpieces. Today, we're looking at a painting from the height of Braque and Picasso's collaboration. It's called Violin and Palette from autumn of 1909. At first glance, the painting seems like a chaotic mess of brown, gray, and green shapes. It's hard to tell what you're looking at, but if you take a moment, let your eyes adjust, the objects start to emerge from a scattered picture plane. Near the top, you can just make out the curled scroll and tuning pegs of the violin. The instrument's body is broken into sharp, angular facets that tumble down the canvas. To the right, we see the artist's palette hanging from a nail. The nail is rendered to make it look almost real and casting a tiny painted shadow. This single realistic detail in an otherwise abstract composition is a bit of a playful nod to the artistic traditions that Braque was actively dismantling. It's a perfect example of analytic cubism. The goal was not to create a realistic copy of the world, but to analyze the subject from every possible angle and present all of that information simultaneously on a flat canvas. Braque breaks the violin apart, showing us the front, the back, the sides all at once. He sacrifices color and emotion for a deep intellectual investigation of form and space. The limited palette of earth tones, ochres, browns, and grays ensures that nothing distracts from the structural analysis. The light seems to come from multiple sources, illuminating different planes and facets, further confusing the sense of space. Violin and Palette was created as Braque and Picasso were pushing the boundaries of what painting could be. By choosing a traditional subject, a still life with a musical instrument, a favorite of artists for centuries, Braque was making a bold statement. He was showing that he could engage with the history of art while completely rewriting its rules. The violin, an object with volume and depth, is flattened and fractured, its reality conveyed not through imitation, but through conceptual reconstruction. The painting isn't just about a violin and a palette. It's about the very nature of perception and representation. How do we see an object? How does our brain assemble multiple viewpoints into a coherent whole? Braque is showing us his thought process on the canvas. The background merges with the foreground, solid forms dissolve into their surroundings. The entire composition is a shimmering, complex grid of interlocking shapes. It's challenging, but rewards close looking, inviting us to become active participants in the process of seeing and understanding. I think it's also worth noting that he was doing this type of study and analysis in kind of the early days of abstract painting, at least from the Western art historical perspective. He was breaking art down to its fundamental elements and sort of rearranging things, playing with them, experimenting, testing the limits to see how far he could push the boundaries, and in the process, helped to launch a sort of revolution in the visual arts.
This concludes this week's episode of Who Arted, part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. If you found this tolerable, please leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. You can find images of the work being discussed this week and every week on social media at Who Arted Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and of course on the website whoartedpodcast.com. Podcast done.